Hey, 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 it's a Sprap tutorial for the newest member, Shopa, personal friend, friend of the fam. She's into Excel. She's cool. She's Shopa. So she wants to know how to use the if function. And the if function is really cool. I'm going to start a new tutorial series where it's called Starts From Nothing. We just start with a blank screen and we say how to take advantage of the if function. If function can do anything. If function has three main parts to it. What it does is it allows you to basically ask a question, perform a bit of logic, do something to a cell or a column or a bunch of cells, and get an answer back, a true or false, and then do something based on that answer. It's really great. So here's how it works, right? Typing in the if function, you always have to start with an equal sign whenever you do a formula. Then you type in if, and then you begin parentheses. Then you can see it says logical test. Logical test is saying, what do you want to do? Then there's going to be a comma, and then you're going to say, well, what happens if that logical test is true? A logical test could be something like, hey, does this cell that I click on right here, does this cell equal number 2? And if it equals number 2, then the answer would be whatever you say the true answer would be. You could say, make it say yes if this cell equals 2. And if it doesn't equal 2, make it say no. So then it would be comma and no, quotation mark no. And then the answer would be no. You can do anything with if. Let's have some fun with the if and say, all right, let's pick a bunch of names. For example, if we go to my website here, the Sprapp website, let's look at the members that we have. Here they are. I'm going to do a little something called extraction, which just involves me copying and pasting into Excel. I do it all the time. Alright, we just grabbed a bunch of data. I'm going to paste this data as text, which kind of strips it of any of its attributes like HTML, stuff like that. Alright, interesting. So now we've got a title line of stuff. This is starting to look like a pivot table, which I'll get into in some of my later tutorials. What if I wanted to write a little if equation about this information and then do something about it? Well, I'm going to take over this. I'm going to call this if area, if formula. All right. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, for example, that posts matter. I'm going to talk about posts. If you have more than 0 posts, then I care. So my if formula is going to say equals if, so we're starting the if formula, and then the beginning parentheses, which we have to type in. If beginning parentheses, I'm going to say, here's my logical test. It's going to be the number of posts greater than 0. So if this number ends up being bigger than 0, it's going to happen here with Spratman Crothers, that's that username who has 6. If it's going to be more, then we're going to do something. Comma, what are we going to do? We're going to say that this is going to be, the word green is going to show up. I don't know. And then I'm going to do something with green, by the way. Green. Otherwise, we're going to say, quotation marks, red. So green is good, means there's posts. Red is bad, so no posts. Enter. So the word green appeared. Now I'm pulling this formula down by pulling the arrow right there, making it look like a black plus sign there when I touch with the bottom right. Here we go. So we just wrote an equation. It pulled some formulas down with it. It says, is this number bigger than 0? It's not, so we're going to say red. Hey, well, let's have some more fun. Let's do some conditional formatting and say if these cells contain the word green, look at that, it already starts filling it in. I want the cell to fill, I'm going to do a custom format, and I want this thing to fill in green. Okay, boom, and all of a sudden if the word is green, it's there, and I can do the same thing with another rule and say if the word is red, then be that reddish color. And it's done. Now, how cool is that? So what if we changed, if all of a sudden Shopa makes a post tonight, because she might, look at that, boom. If. Look at what if just did. If changed colors, if did all kinds of stuff. If is great. That's just one simple example of doing a very simple if that says, is this number greater than 0? How about, geez, I mean, you can do anything. You can do anything. You can say, you know, how many usernames begin with the letter S, right? Well, I could write a formula. I could get rid of this information right here. I could write a formula and say equals. How would I do this? How do I find out if the name starts with the letter S? You could say if beginning parentheses. Well, the first letter on the left here is the letter I'm looking for. Is that an S? Well, here's the way you isolate the first letter on the left. Is you say left. Believe it or not, that's a formula for picking off the left side of a cell or left side of a word. Beginning parentheses left. It says, what text are you looking for the left side of? B5. It's hidden now if you're looking on the screen because you can't see it, but I'm highlighting B5, which is the cell right below username that has the name Sprapps. Cell B5, comma, it's saying number of characters, which is how many characters on the left do you want? We want 1 because we're looking for the first letter. End parentheses. Now I've closed my left function that I just created. So I'm saying if left, right now I have the first letter of that word to the right of me. If that equals, quotation marks, I don't know if this is cap sensitive or not. Let's say it might be. But if this is an S, and I'm saying a capital S, so we'll see what happens when we pull this formula down because the SHOPA is not capitalized at the bottom. So if it's cap sensitive, this might not work. I'm getting ahead of myself. But if that letter on the left equals S, then we can say this is a S beginner. Or we can just say S, which means the thing starts with S. Otherwise, if this letter doesn't start with S, then you can say nothing. Just quote, quote. So yes, that one starts with S. Does Ken Stock start with S? Wow, by the way, I just double-clicked. Apparently that pulled the formula all the way down. Not cap sensitive because this worked. This gave me the S here. So look at that. We just created an S. Because all those begin with it. That's an if. That's an if you can do with that. What if you wanted to say, instead of turning the cell into an S, what if you just want to say, count 1. Give me the count of you know, say I'm counting the number of times that something begins with an S. You would just say, if the first letter of that word is 1 digit of that letter equals the letter S, then put a 1 here. Otherwise, instead of putting quote, quote, you could say put a 0. You don't even have to put the numbers in quotes. You can just put actual numbers. And the numbers show up. And you can pull that down. I like that way of pulling it down fast, by the way, double clicking on that. It's an accident that I found that now. So you'd have a total of 3 words that begin with the letter S. So you can see the if goes crazy. There's ifs and ifs and ifs, and there's so many different things. You can do anything with an if. You give me a problem, I will show you how to answer the question with an if. And that is if. It's 3 parts to it. It's a logical test. What happens if that test is true? And what happens if that test is false? There's also ways to nest things inside of ifs, which we'll get into later. But that's just the basics. So that's the Sprapp Man teaching you how to if it.